Kash Patel didn't just lie under oath. He built an entire web of deceit to shield Trump's FBI from accountability. But Senator Sheldon Whitehouse just tore through that facade, exposing corruption deep within federal law enforcement. The truth is out, and it's uglier than they ever wanted you to see. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more hard-hitting truth they don't want you to hear. Sheldon Whitehouse calls out Kash Patel's corruption. Senate stunned.
By disagreeing with the notion that what took place with respect to the cases against President Trump was weaponization. I know that's the Republican theory of the case, but the other reason why the FBI and the Department of Justice would investigate Trump for crimes is because Trump was doing crimes, and there was adequate predication to pursue investigation of those crimes. And indeed, in every case that I'm aware of in which those cases were allowed to go to judgment, the president was convicted. So we can't allow the weaponization narrative to just remove the notion that the guy was investigated and prosecuted for crimes because he did the crimes. Once you start with the notion that Trump is not a criminal but a victim, you then have to invent the conspiracy that victimized him. And once you've propagated that conspiracy, you then have to find who the conspirators are. So then you have to go after FBI agents and DOJ folks in order to prop up that theory. The way that ended in Soviet Russia was with show trials of the individuals who were allegedly in the conspiracy. The way that ends in Trump's America is with agents and prosecutors forced out in mass purges that may well, as the Ranking Member Durbin has pointed out, been driven by Kash Patel as a private citizen. So starting with that point, there are three reasons why Kash Patel is extremely dangerous. One is all of his wild MAGA behavior. This is a guy whose judgment is beyond questionable. It's appallingly bad. We have a lot of quarrel about whether his enemies list is an enemies list and whether we're smearing the guy by saying that his enemies list is an enemies list. Here's what he said about it. He showed his enemies list and said, "The manhunt starts tomorrow." If they're not your enemies, why would you start a manhunt against them? He called them the criminals themselves and showed a picture of his enemies list. If criminals aren't your enemies, as head of the FBI, who are? He retweeted a video showing him chainsawing the heads off of people on his enemies list. If you're chainsawing the heads off of people, are they not your enemies? So the invention that this is not an enemies list requires people to go into just fantasy land. And these are his own statements. These aren't our accusations. These are Patel's own words. Going after people in the media, impeaching judges who disagree with us, shutting down the FBI Hoover building, on and on and on. This guy is a flagrant extremist with appallingly bad judgment. Second point, we don't know enough about this mischief yet. There are real open questions. We've never in this committee had a person come for a serious senior law enforcement position who had testified in a grand jury criminal matter, and we don't know what he testified about. He's entitled to tell us. That's basic grand jury Rule 6E law. But this side of the committee is completely covering that up. We have absolutely no statement from Patel about what his grand jury testimony was. And he's at liberty to give that to us. He just won't. And Republicans won't tell him to. So he gets away with it. He pled the fifth. You don't get to plead the fifth without a real and genuine concern that you can be prosecuted for a crime. What crime? We're entitled to know. We've never had somebody come through this committee for a high senior law enforcement position who had pled the fifth. He's got the right to do that, of course. We've got the right to know. And by the way, when he exercises the right to do that in a civil proceeding, that entitles the jury to draw the adverse inference that what he is covering up in the civil proceeding with his Fifth Amendment assertion is against his interests. A judge will instruct a jury about that adverse interest, and we're not supposed to draw an adverse interest in this committee when we're not told about his Fifth Amendment assertion. There's all this weird stuff that's come up since about investments in Chinese companies in the Cayman Islands vesting while he will be FBI director. If the guy is supposed to be investigating Chinese intrusion into our intelligence faculties, if we're trying to investigate Chinese fentanyl trafficking into our country, why do we want an FBI director who is somewhere between $1 and $5 million into a Chinese company through a Cayman Islands shell? And then there are the Russia connections. I'll get to those at the end. We don't have to, where everybody's fond of saying these are Democratic smears. Actually, go to the Trump appointees who worked with this guy. What are they warning us? They're warning us, Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton. I didn't think he was qualified. I was forced to hire him. That's some recommendation from a colleague. His deputy, Charles Kupperman. Patel's ideas are ludicrous. He's absolutely unqualified for this job, untrustworthy, an absolute disgrace to even consider an individual of this nature. Definitely you want that on your resume by way of a recommendation from a former supervisor. Attorney General Barr said Patel has virtually no experience that would qualify him to be the deputy director of the FBI, and now he's back as the director of the FBI. And Trump's CIA director, Gina Haspel, threatened to resign rather than allow this guy into her office as her deputy. And if you go beyond the Trump appointees who are warning us about this guy, you can go to the last time he testified in court, which was in Colorado, and here's what the court found about him. That Patel was not a credible witness, that his testimony was illogical, and it was completely devoid of any evidence in the record. Okay, I've been an attorney general, and I've been a United States attorney, and I've put state police troopers on the stand, and I've put FBI agents on the stand. If at the end of a case, a judge made findings like this about a law enforcement witness that I put on the stand, there would be follow-up. I would want an explanation of why this witness was so incredible that findings like that were made by the judge. It would be a significant issue with respect to that witness's continued performance in office. And here's a guy who's been found to be completely incredible by a judge in his testimony, and we're acting as if that's nothing. That's not Democrats. That's a judge in Colorado. So the last thing I'll say is I think we need to begin to prepare ourselves for Trump-Russia 2.0. The Trump-Russia thing was, I'm not going to go back all over it, fully ventilated in the Senate Bipartisan Intelligence Report, in the Mueller report. Trump-Russia was a thing. We stopped talking about it, but Trump kept talking about it and saying it was a hoax. Trump-Russia hoax, Trump-Russia hoax. No, it was not a hoax. It was real. It was there. There's a record. Part of it was bipartisan work. Some of it was done in the House. There was an abundance of evidence about the Trump-Russia connection. And now what are we seeing? We're seeing Patel coming in, who says he wants to wreck the FBI's what he called intel shop, which is the part of the FBI that looks at Russia and does counterintelligence work against Russia. He said that he wants to close out the D.C. office and send everybody out into the field. Well, it's the D.C. office, not the field offices, that do the counterintelligence work. You want to shut it down? You're opening your arms to Russian intelligence operations. You go just across to the Attorney General's office, and there's Attorney General Bondi. What's the first thing she does when she gets in? Closes all the kleptocrature and kleptocracy investigation offices of the Department of Justice. Gee, who are they pursuing? Putin and his oligarchs. Your intelligence operations. You go just across to the Attorney General's office, and there's Attorney General Bondi. What's the first thing she does when she gets in? Closes all the kleptocrature and kleptocracy investigation offices of the Department of Justice. Gee, who are they pursuing? Putin and his oligarchs. You shut down the group that has successfully grabbed assets off Putin's crooked oligarchs. What a signal that is. And then look at Tulsi Gabbard. I'm not going to go through the whole length of her Russia associations, but let's just say that a Russian news media editorial said that her appointment should cause the CIA and the FBI to tremble because she was a friend to Russia. Who defends us against Russian intelligence operations and Russia's criminal operations in the United States? It's the FBI, it's the Department of Justice, and it's our intelligence community. The people in charge of each one have sent powerful signals that they are shutting down our defenses when it comes to Russia. And we're about to head to the Munich Security Conference, where we are seeing Mr. Art of the Deal and his operatives giving away every piece of leverage that we have over Putin with respect to Ukraine. It is unilateral disarmament to throw Ukraine under the bus and give Putin what he wants. So mark my words. This Patel guy will come back to haunt you. Every piece of evidence shows that, and it is not Democrat evidence. It's his own words, it's his own colleagues, and it's judges evaluating his credibility.
When Senator Sheldon Whitehouse speaks, it's never just about the person sitting in front of him, it's about the system behind them. What unfolded during that hearing wasn't routine political theater. It was the slow, deliberate unmasking of how truth and accountability are breaking down inside America's most powerful law enforcement institution. Whitehouse wasn't tossing out a headline or performing for cameras. He was delivering one of the most serious accusations a senator can make, that Kash Patel, the sitting FBI director, lied under oath before the United States Senate. That's not rhetoric. It's perjury, a felony, and coming from a senator known for precision, documentation, and restraint, it means the evidence wasn't vague, it was concrete. When Patel was questioned about his prior grand jury testimony, he claimed he couldn't discuss it. His justification sounded airtight. He said a court order from the chief judge of the D.C. District Court prevented him from revealing details. To most observers, that explanation seemed legitimate, the kind of legal barrier any witness might face. But the truth? There was no such order. None. The Judge Patel cited publicly clarified that no order existed preventing Patel from disclosing his own testimony. Under Rule 6E of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, a witness is always free to share what they said before a grand jury. Patel's claim was not a misunderstanding, it was a fabrication. That falsehood matters deeply because Patel wasn't just any witness. He was the head of the FBI, using the authority of a federal court to shield himself from congressional questioning. When he returned months later, confronted again, he shifted his story. This time, he claimed the transcript of his testimony had already been released. Once again, false. No record existed, no transcript was released, and no permission was ever granted. For a casual observer, this might look like a bureaucratic tangle, but for Senator Whitehouse, who has spent years tracing corruption, dark money networks, and manipulation within federal institutions, it revealed something far more disturbing, a deliberate pattern. The issue here isn't just that Patel lied, it's that his lies were institutional, strategic, and purposeful. He wasn't protecting himself, he was protecting the system that shields power from accountability. When the director of the FBI misleads Congress twice without consequence, it signals something broken far beyond one man's integrity. It's about whether the United States government still treats truth as the standard of justice or merely as a political option. The position of FBI director was designed to be a firewall, a barrier separating politics from justice. But Patel's entire rise to power has been defined by demolishing that firewall. He is not a lawman in the traditional sense. He's a political operative forged in the fires of Trump-era loyalty tests. His career blossomed not through independence, but through allegiance. From his role role helping draft the Nunes memo, which sought to undermine his own agency's investigation into Russian election interference, to his repeated efforts to discredit U.S. intelligence findings that didn't align with partisan goals. So when a figure like Patel lies under oath, it isn't an isolated act. It's the visible symptom of a disease spreading across democratic institutions, where facts are rewritten, accountability is erased, and loyalty becomes more valuable than honesty. Senator Whitehouse has seen this movie before. During the Trump years, he watched a Justice Department once built on independence morph into a political weapon. He's seen truth warped into messaging, and he understands that when oversight collapses, democracy doesn't fall overnight. It rots from within. That's why he pressed Patel's contradictions so carefully. Because if the Senate Judiciary Committee cannot compel honesty from the head of the FBI, then what hope remains for accountability anywhere else? When the most powerful law enforcement official in the nation can mislead Congress without consequence, hearings cease to be tools of justice. They become theater. Performances where the truth is optional and deception is just another political strategy. Whitehouse's demand for the full transcript wasn't procedural. It was moral. He was asking a simple, devastating question. Does transparency still matter? If the answer is no, if officials can twist facts under oath and face nothing but silence in response, then the machinery of democracy no longer runs on law. It runs on loyalty. This is why the Patel controversy matters far beyond legal technicalities, because it forces Americans to confront an uncomfortable truth. Do those sworn to uphold the law still believe the law applies to them? What's happening here is bigger than one lie, one hearing, or one man. It's about the soul of governance. The moment leaders stop fearing the consequences of lying to Congress, the very idea of democratic oversight collapses. Every dictatorship begins with the same erosion, when truth becomes negotiable, when lying is redefined as strategy, when silence replaces outrage. That's how institutions decay, not in explosions, but in quiet normalization. Whitehouse isn't performing outrage. He's documenting history. He's building a record so future generations can't say no one saw it coming. Because they did. We all did. And the question now is whether we'll do anything about it. Kash Patel's story is more than a scandal. It's a test of whether the United States can still tell the difference between justice and propaganda. If truth can be buried beneath layers of legal jargon and false citations, then even the oath of office loses meaning. Democracy depends on a simple promise that those in power tell the truth, especially when it's inconvenient. When that promise breaks, so does the system. That's why this moment, this hearing, matters. Because if Congress lets this pass unchallenged, the precedent will echo for decades. It tells every future official that deceit is survivable, that accountability is optional, that integrity is for the weak. If we want a government worthy of its people, accountability cannot be partisan. It must be absolute. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fearless breakdowns that cut through spin and expose the truth. Because democracy doesn't defend itself. We do. Stay informed, stay critical, stay awake.